know, it's actually, it's a 1960s building. It was built to be the residence for the man who actually re-established a mill here. So it was a little cottage where he lived. But we take advantage of this place to demonstrate different activities that would have been common in 1750 that are not common nowadays, all right? So, and we do have a fireplace here. We have some authentic reproductions of different equipment, so we can really give you an idea of what the daily activities were like in 1750. So sometimes we're cooking here. Sometimes we're talking about textiles, what you did with the wool from the sheep to turn it into a finished garment. That would have been, most of the farmers around here did have sheep, so that would have been a common activity. Sometimes, occasionally, though that's sometimes since we've done it, we make butter here. But today we're talking medicines, all right? What people did in 1750, they lived around here and they got sick. And there were no hospitals at all, anywhere in the colonies. There were no doctors locally. There were doctors in the city, but the city was half a day's journey away, whether you went by ox cart or if you went by boat. So really, that was probably not an option, and people tended to be very suspicious of the doctors at the time. They were very expensive. They were beginning to use very intrusive methods like bloodletting and applying leeches, using opium, etc. So people living in this area were much more self-reliant. They relied on home remedies. And their garden was like their pharmacy, basically. So they would have been using different plants and be very familiar with different plants and their medicinal uses. This, I know, does not look like an old book, Culpeper's Herbal, but the original was published actually in the 17th century. Nicholas Culpeper was a physician, come astrologer, who believed very strongly that people should be able to treat themselves. He believed that for every single disease there was a remedy in the plant world. It was called the theory of simples. Right? So this book was published in Boston by this time, so it was available to people who could read. But people were probably using their own remedies, very similar to these that passed down from generation to generation. So, but when we talk about the uses, we're often referring to Culpeper, so I just wanted you to know that. So, your garden, as I said, would have been your pharmacy. You don't, at this point, the garden really is dead, more or less. So, we don't include it in the tour. But we have a garden back there, the slave garden, which is set up so a third of the garden is growing medicinal herbs, and that would have been typical in those days, that people would have put down not just vegetables for food, but actually herbs which should be used for cooking too, but more importantly for medicine. So I'm just going to show you one or two of the herbs that we use and have growing in our garden. A typical way of making a medicine in those days, well, there were two ways. One was making an infusion, which was when you ground up the substance and then poured hot water on it, boiling water, sort of like making a tea. That's an infusion. The other is a decoction, which is when you basically boil up your substance and then let it simmer, and that would be the decoction. But we're making, at this point, making an infusion, and your trusty pestle and mortar, you grind up the herb as fine as you can. Anyone want to do some grinding? No? No grinders? Thank you.
I did the wheel, so I might as well do that. And so there's a particular way you have to, or can you just?
Well, the only thing, when we have young kids doing it, they go bang, 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 and that doesn't do anything except to take out their frustrations.
Right.
But this is pushing really. And
Smells good. Smells very
anybody
good.
else? No takers? Okay. Then to make the infusion, you'd really have to grind it up pretty fine, but we don't have time for that at this point.
Right.
So I have got hot water here. Really, as I said, I should have a funnel going for the sake of getting boiling water. But I did put hot water in this. And you let it brew. And the brewing would help to bring out its medicinal value as well as the smell. If you, after a while, it really begins to smell pretty good in here. And I deliberately actually sort of hid what the herb was. Anybody recognize it?
Yes, fennel.
Yes.
Yeah, fennel. That comes. The seeds come from the fennel bulb.
Actually, the fennel bulb is more